All right, this is the situation at the end of turn 3. This is the strategic map. And the having gotten control of all of the waters around Penghu Island group, the Chinese forces, Marines landed. I left a floating reserve available. Well, not really floating. I had some on the mainland, but I sent amphibious vessels back to collect them, and they were able to wipe out the garrison and succeeded in rolling the clearing die roll. And it was a high-ranked chit, but they rolled as good as you can possibly roll. They rolled a big fat 9 for that. So that was a big win for them, getting the hefty 10 points victory from there. And now those guys are now free to maybe explore going after the Paracels or the Spratlys. Going after the Ryukyu Island group, or the Senkaku's Island group in the Ryukyu Island sea zone, is probably unlikely due to the presence of U.S. naval forces coming online. And so that's basically what's transpired here. No sea battles really took place. Some cruise missile shots at the Americans out here off Okinawa, but no damage. In fact, the cruise missiles and ballistic missiles rolled absolutely terrible. I've never seen this many missiles shot for no effect in this system ever. And I've played quite a few games, but this one, every game's been a little different. And this one, man, it seems like every time you shoot a missile, you're going to roll a 7, 8, or a 9 and not do much of anything. So the situation now at the beachhead is the Chinese have cleared the city hex here, and they've got more more Marines on the shore. They haven't attempted to clear Taiwan yet, because I really wanted to make sure that we got that city cleared first. I didn't want to tie down too many troops with clearing actions, so as to keep the pressure up on the perimeter. I did send some Marine detachments and some airborne detachments to link up with the boys at the other beachhead. It's not exactly linked up per se, but some serious damage was inflicted on the Taiwanese ground troops in this area, although now they have built a fairly extensive defensive perimeter, and they brought the Patriot batteries forward into Taichung. So at this point, it's almost like a stalemate for now. Neither side's quite strong enough to do anything much about the other. There's been some naval skirmishes back and forth, but no real outcome has occurred from that. So not as much movement on the main map other than bringing new guys in, and that's about it. As far as the air war goes, both sides took some losses, and the AWACS remains at 1. Actually, it should be at 2. AWACS should be at 2, not 1. The air superiority was contested, and now that new U.S. forces, naval forces, have arrived in theater, the ASW level has now met the sub-level. That's going to make it easier for those naval forces to do the contested moves necessary to get from the Ryukyus into the Straits of Taiwan and begin to contest for control. They're going to have to group all these guys together and then make that effort. And so it's going to take probably another turn or two to get that done. The initiative will remain with the Chinese. They got 19 points this last turn, mainly due to picking up the Penghu Island group. If it wasn't for that, it would be a contested initiative turn going into turn 3. But that will give the Chinese, that's going to really help them. Having initiative for that third turn in a row is going to make it possible, I think, for them to bring sizable land units from the mainland into the ports that are functioning. You got some serious heavy hitters in here. You got some artillery, another HQ, which is vital. And so if they get those guys into the mainland, it's going to put a lot of pressure on those ground troops. These, by the way, these represent air bases and nuclear sites in mainland China. It's not printed on the map, but it is on the box that's in the Vietnam map. So that's why I put those on there as notional air bases and nuke sites. One of them was destroyed. So That was, I think, due to special forces combined with, I think a missile shot actually did take that one out. So the S-300s and Patriots have been doing a pretty good job of keeping the strikes at bay, with one exception. The big notable exception was B-52 strikes on the port there and there that were captured. Those strikes were pretty painful, but not painful enough. If this port is knocked out of action, that could be a problem for the Chinese. Having the 2 ports plus the beachhead allows them to bring 3 units over every movement phase, and that's huge. What they really need to do now is put a lot of pressure on expanding the bridge or the beachhead so that they can continue to funnel troops into this corridor and start clearing the plain of the vital. There's all kinds of points to be had in these towns and little air bases. Meanwhile, we can send some other guys off after the in the clearing operation, try to take out take the big points for the urban hex at Tainan, and then begin moving on Kaohsiung. Haven't really pressed pressure in this area, mainly because I don't have the troop strength to do that just yet. There's only one HQ on board, the airborne, and they're providing an umbrella of support to this whole region right here. Once the next corps gets over with its HQ, that's going to be a big boost for the PRC. Now, a lot's going to depend on the UN die roll now. The UN die roll gets a +2 modifier, so there's as good a chance as ever of a ceasefire. And Taiwan really, I think, is hoping for an early ceasefire. That would be the ideal situation, because if they ignore it, that's going to give VPs to the allies, and it's going to be hard for them to overcome that. If the war continues, U.S. Navy has got to make its presence felt in here. Otherwise, the PRC is going to pick away at these island groups, and that's going to present an intolerable problem to the allies in the long term. There's a lot of points to be made in grabbing these little island groups. So that's the an update on the situation. Definitely a lot of fun, and probably the biggest question for me is, can the PRC continue to maintain air superiority now that you have Marine Air, U.S. Navy Air coming online, the forces in Okinawa, they now have F-18s ready to fly, and so this pressure from the U.S. Air Force and Taiwan is going to make it really, really hard for China to maintain its aerial offensive. They're going to have to start taking some chances where I don't like to take chances. And the B-2 strikes are going to start rolling in again. We got the B-1s, B-2s ready to go in Guam, and one of the B-52 strikes did recover soon enough to fly missions again. And so they got to be escorted, because they can be detected and picked up. You don't want them intercepted, but man, they can fly these standoff strike missions that put a lot of hurt down on a ground unit, on an air base. But the thing is, you only got 3 of those strikes, so use them wisely. I think going after these ports is a really good idea. If you take them out, if you destroy them, that's going to slow up the reinforcement of the island and make it harder for the Chinese to get major strength on board before the reserves can get pulled up and really dig into some of these urban sites. The force, this corps got pretty battered around Tainan because they were really spread out. Now they're concentrated, and they do have good communications to fall back on basically a standard die position at Kaohsiung. I think that's really the only thing that makes sense. I think making a run across the mountains to another position makes 0 sense. You're going to have reserve brigades that'll show up, and you can plant them in these other locations. In the meantime, I think dig in here, make them pay for every single yard, and try to extract as many losses, inflict as many losses on the PRC as you possibly can before a ceasefire is imposed. Put the pressure on the PRC to ignore a ceasefire. That would ratchet up U.S. Involvement, and then bring perhaps airborne contingent U.S. troops. Just one division of U.S. troops can make a huge difference in the defense of the island early. But if they keep bringing over, if they can bring an entire corps over in 2 days, that's going to make it really, really hard. It's going to put a lot of pressure on the Taiwanese units to be able to hold critical areas. I don't feel like this position is tenable for much longer. Mainly it's a line to try to stall things. Hopefully U.S. airpower can inflict some hits on the Chinese ground units, making it impossible for them to attack. But if that's not going to happen, more than likely these guys are going to break out, and substantial numbers from the mainland will make their presence known. And fighting on this open terrain up on the west side of the island is going to make it really, really hard on the defenders. So I'm reluctant to pull too many more of the what I call the red corps out of the north of the island. Those are the ones with the red NATO symbol. I don't remember what their corps number is. I'm reluctant to do that because they could still do an amphibious landing behind them. So I'm kind of thinking we're going to make this our main line of resistance here, and try to hold these highways. The refugee traffic situation is going to be a little bit better going into turn 3 and 4, but it's still going to make it harder on the defenders than on the attackers to move rapidly. But I do need to start being mindful of their ability, the Chinese ability to get, now that they have mobile supply units on the map, of using these secondary highways and roads across the mountains. These could be could pose real problems and allow them access to areas that are not well defended. So I need to pay attention to that. But like I said, a lot's going to come down to the UN die roll, and we'll see what happens in the next turn.